Hello. On behalf of the Historical Society of Harford County, welcome to this afternoon's presentation, Christmas in Harford in Days Gone By. Before we begin, please be aware that this event is being recorded and will be made available publicly through the Historical Society webpage and on the Society's YouTube channel. The Historical Society of Harford County is the oldest county historical society in Maryland. The Historical Society collects, preserves, promotes, interprets the rich and diverse history of the Harford County area in its regional context, from prehistoric origins to the present, for the education and enjoyment of current and future residents. The Society's headquarters at 143 North Main Street in Bel Air houses extensive collections of court records, artifacts, photos, books, newspapers, portraits, articles, and written materials by and about the people and places of Harford County. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Society buildings are closed to the public for the moment, and we are holding all of our events virtually. I'm Jackie Seneschal, your host for this virtual brown bag lunch. Our speaker today is board member Chris Potts. Chris has a background in teaching and the performing arts. Today, she will be telling the story as Eugenia Warner Prescott, a fictional character born in Philadelphia in 1898, who is joining us on Zoom from her home in Bel Air in 1964. Eugenia recollects Christmases from her past and shares memories that are based on historical fact. After Eugenia tells us her story, Chris will present historical photographs pertaining to the people, places, and events, including in Eugenia's story. So please sit back and enjoy some Harford stories of Christmas past.
Oh, it's cold out there. Oh, hello, Jackie. It's good to be with you. Oh, I just got back uptown, Christmas shopping. I got as far as Hirsch's and Richardson's drugstore, and I realized the time. I thought, the hub will have to wait. I had to be back for your lunch program. So, rushed home, and here I am, ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Well, almost. All right. Well, Jackie, I understand that you are looking for someone who can tell old Christmas stories about Harford County. Well, I seem to have been deemed suitably over the hill, and I assure you my memory is fully intact. So, what would you and your... Well, I don't entirely know what this is, to be perfectly honest. It looks something like a typewriter attached to a very small television set. TV it is. What would you and your TV viewers like to know? Well, there's something on the screen. Oh, it's a message from you. Okay. To me, yes. This is called Zoom. Zoom TV. I like it. It's snappy. Would you please tell us your name and where you live and how you're spending Christmas this year? That's easy enough. Well, my name is Eugenia Warner Prescott, and I live here in Bel Air, which is the county seat. Well, looking forward to ringing in the new year and a few short weeks of 1965 right around the corner. And I suppose until then, my husband and I are doing a little bit of decorating and writing Christmas cards. Oh, well, now there's something that will probably interest you, Jackie. It's historical. This weekend, my husband, Press and I, we are going to be going to a colonial themed Christmas party, open house, up at the Rigby farm in Darlington. Friends of ours, they said, oh, grab your old Revolutionary War costumes and tag along with us. And I thought, well, why not? I mean, we actually have Revolutionary War costumes. And it's because of the Rigby House. Yes. You see, Press and I, we were at the Rigby House some 30 years ago. Must have been 1931. Yep. They had a big celebration there commemorating Lafayette. You know, Lafayette camped at the Rigby farm, he and his troops, 1781, I think, but yes, 1781, on their way to Yorktown. And well, in 1931, they had this big celebration, commemorating the event. Oh, speeches, house tours, hundreds of people were there, and Press and I were volunteering for the event. And they had the volunteers dress up in, colonial costume. Press carried an old musket, and he had a Minuteman coat and one of those three-cornered hats, and I had on a long dress and apron. And well, I know we still have those costumes somewhere up in the attic. Well, Press is up there now looking for them. Oh, he'll find them. Yes. Now, doesn't that sound like fun? A colonial themed Christmas party at the Rigby House. Well, I, for one, can't wait to put on my old mob cap and channel my inner Betsy Ross. Well, Betsy and I were both daughters of Philadelphia. I was born there. Born and bred in the city of brotherly love. But I spent all of my young Christmases here in Harford County, starting with the very first one, 1898, year of my birth. Oh, yes, Jackie, I go back that far. Oh, another message. Could you please refrain from smoking? Jackie, for reasons known only to yourself, you think smoking is so very bad for people. Well, all right, I'm putting it out. Makes you uncomfortable. And I won't light it again till after you're gone. There, solution for everything if you look hard enough for it. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Could you please tell us about your childhood Christmases here in Harford County? Yes, I can. Let's see. As I said, I grew up in Philadelphia. And every Christmas Eve, my mother and father and I would go down to the B&O train station there, Chestnut 24th, and we would board the Royal Blue Line. Now, that train lived up to its name. It was painted a regal royal blue with gold lettering. And inside, the coaches were paneled in mahogany, and they had these grand plush seats, sit down in those seats and take off, dizzying speed, down through Wilmington and Newark, across the Susquehanna Bridge. I'd always grab my mother's hand and hold my breath until we got to the other side. And then on down through Havertide and Aberdeen until we reached our stop, Bel Camp Station. That's where we disembarked. And Uncle Harry would always be waiting for us with horse and sleigh. Well, it snowed so much more back then. It really did. And he'd always have the twins with him, Kitty and Elizabeth. Oh, Kitty, Elizabeth, and I, we were all the same age, and we were just the best of friends. Well, I went to Goucher with Kitty. Class of 21. Goucher girls. True and true. But back then, the old Bell Camp station, we were just small children, packed up with the luggage and heading off for Maplewood. Oh, well, that was the name of the farm, Maplewood. 40 acres, right here in Fountain Green. Oh, yes, Uncle Harry. Well, he wasn't really my uncle. No, the Warners and the Whistlers weren't related by blood, but we were all just dear, dear friends. All of us. And Uncle, well, I wonder, Jackie, if your viewers knew my Uncle Harry Whistler, and his wife, Oleta Harwood Whistler. They had 4 children. The boys, Douglas and C. Webster, and then Elizabeth and Catherine. Well, we called her Kitty. And I suppose you could say my Uncle Harry was a gentleman farmer. He raised cattle. He also had a fertilizer business. He did very well for himself. In fact, he was one of the first men in Harford County to own a motor car. Pierce Arrow. Oh, motoring down old dusty summer roads in a Pierce Arrow is something I highly recommend. Oh, but for winter travel, nothing beats a horse and sleigh. Oh, how I loved being in that sleigh. Those beautiful horses and the jingle bells on the harnesses, waving to the people across the fields on the farms. I knew I was in the country then. Well, Fountain Green Road. It was the road we took back to Maplewood, Fountain Green Road. That was just a little dirt road then. No, they didn't pave roads in Harford County until later. 1915. I know it for a fact, because that was when I turned 17. And I remember when I heard the news, I said to my father, well, when the roads are paved, I can drive a motor car. I failed to convince him. But when we would get back to Maplewood with the sleigh, we'd get all unpacked and go on in the house. And well, Aunt Oleta would always be waiting for us with hot milk and mincemeat pies. Oh, Aunt Oleta was quite the Christmas cook. Yes, she must have been baking for days before we got there. The whole house smelled like cinnamon and citrus and cloves. Oh, and she didn't stop at mincemeat. No. She had coconut pies and chocolate pies and all sorts of breads and fruitcake. Now that was my father's favorite, fruitcake. Nothing he liked better than a good Christmas fruitcake, just soaked in rum. Oh, my parents loved Christmas in the country just as much as I did. And well, of course, that night, Santa was coming, so they shuffle us children off to bed early, Well, none of us could sleep. Well, I couldn't. I was much too excited. Just lay there awake, listening to the adults, downstairs, all talking and laughing in the sitting room. And, well, they were trimming the tree, so that the next morning when we children came downstairs, we'd see it for the first time, all decorated with the presents underneath. Oh, and I assure you, we children came down bright and early. rushed into that sitting room to see what Santa would bring us. Good old Santa, he never let us down. And then, of course, Aunt Olita would fortify us with her Christmas breakfast. Pig's feet, hominy, and sauerkraut. She'd serve a turkey for dinner from her own flock, cooked at big cast iron wood stove. Delicious. And then later, weather permitting, it was back to the sleigh, all wrapped up in blankets, hot bricks at your feet. And they'd hang these those old oil lanterns. Oh, they'd hang them there and they'd make a glow. And off you'd go. O'er the fields, under a night of stars. Oh, those were good old Christmases. They truly were. That reminds me, Jackie, I told you I was just uptown, got it all decorated. Looks nice. And I was at the Richardson's drugstore and I ran into Inez. Oh, who is Inez? Inez Osborne. If you don't know her, you should. She's very active in the Historical Society. In fact, just last year, she became the first female president of the society. 1963, milestone. Now, what was it? Oh, Inez was telling me. It seems that the society has always been rather progressive in their thinking involving women. The society, they've never been excluding women in the original Constitution, or, well, ladies were present there at the very first meeting in December of 1885, I think she said it was. Yes, because I said to her, well, Inez, it only took 78 years for a woman to take the helm. I, for one, am perfectly delighted. Oh, I was a suffragist in my youth. Marched and everything. But that's another story. Jackie, you wanted Old Christmas. And what Inez gave me is Old Christmas to a T. It's a poem about Christmas shopping in Bel Air in 1898, year of my birth. They ran it in the Aegis and Intelligencer. Oh, I'm sure many of your viewers get the Aegis. Well, it was the same paper. They just shortened the name in 1904 when the Worthingtons took over. So anyway, I thought I would read you excerpts from the poem. See if you recognize any of the names of the places, just for fun. All right, so here it is, the Bel Air Business Directory by W.T.S. Ye strangers who may come to town, we're glad to see your faces. Please notice our directory ere you visit business places. For all your wants these Christmas times, we've made provision ample. Call round and see and bring your dimes. We're pleased to show a sample. All right, well now, this part here, I think, allows us to safely ascertain that WTS was a man. Because before he even gets to shopping, he tells you where you can get something to eat or drink. Or as he puts it, regale the inner man, sir. So if your whistle dry should feel, stop on Cortlandt Street and wet it. And if you want a good square meal, down at Hannah's you can get it. The hotel's on the other street, all set out tempting diet. If you want something good to eat, just call around and try it. And then he tells you where to get a good cigar. Down at Archer's, presumably. Then he tells you about hardware and shoes and boots and weed machines. Oh, cottons and woolens and keys and clocks. And well, now here's something for the ladies. So visit all the places. Just call in at the bonnet stores for ribbons and for laces. And then it's back to menswear. Thinking an overcoat, vest, trousers, things like that. If you've not found the thing you want, be easy, never mind it. But quietly just wend your way to Herman's. There you'll find it. Sounds like Woolworths to me. Oh, carriage gear and saddles. And if your carriage will no longer stand and you want to get another, just call round with cash in hand on John Hanna and his brother. Someplace to advertise. Well, now here's something. Garrison sells paint. Not Harrison. Garrison, it says, sells paint. Plain or gay, wallpaper, bright or pale. More cattle, flour. At Delhaven's shops, they'll shoe your mule, make a horse cart or a harrow. And if you'd like to wheel around, they'll make you a wheelbarrow. Only way to travel. You now for some time have been out, seen the stores and their processions. Let's have a little talk about our men of the professions. And then they name some doctors here, Lee, Dr. Hall, Dr. Will. There's a dentist, Dr. Dance. Oh, and if you wish advice in law, to a lawyer's office go, sir. They're the smartest fellows e'er you saw. Tell all you wish to know, sir. The attorneys in the crowd will appreciate that stanza. We move beyond the bar to Mr. Snowden is our clergyman. His son Thomas is the squire. Mentions an MP parsonage. You'll find a clever preacher. And down at the academy, P.C. Taylor is the teacher. Well, the academy, that's most likely Bel Air Academy, I would think. And it talks about where you could buy lottery tickets. Draws to a close. So now I've given you all a card to keep your conscience clear this winter and leave a Christmas present for the bard with F.W. Baker, printer. F.W. Baker, that would have been Frederick W. Baker, because he was editor of the Aegis and Intelligencer. 25, 30 years. I think he became editor in 1870 and then up into the 1890s. What Press will know. You know, Press, he's such an old history buff. Well, I'm sure some of your viewers are as well, Jackie. In which event, just tell them, contact the Historical Society. Oh, they have loads of things like well, just like this. Not just newspapers. They have well, maps and court records, books, letters, photographs. Jackie, they have boxes and boxes of photographs. It is a treasure trove. Oh, and they're not stuffy about it either. No, it's a real come one, come all kind of thing. And if you want to be a member, you can join. Press and I did. If you think you need an invitation, here it is. Tell them Eugenia sent you. You're sure to get VIP treatment then. Well, if you're into that kind of thing. Oh, another question. Am I going to give the poem to Press for Christmas? Well, that's a good idea, Jackie. I hadn't thought of it, but you're right. This poem would be the perfect Christmas present for Press. And well, you know, it's just the kind of thing we used to give at Christmas, especially during the lean years. And there were plenty of those for plenty of people. After the crash, depression, and there were the shortages and the sacrifices of the war. Oh, I remember 1940s. They told you to stay off the phone at Christmas time, not to make any long distance calls, because they needed to keep the lines open for the boys to call home. Oh, you didn't touch that phone. Not on Christmas, no. You would never want to do that to our boys fighting that war, especially if you'd lived through the first one. 1918. That was a terrible year. The war was over by Christmas. You know, they had declared the armistice in November. There were still shortages. It was hard to get a hold of the most basic things like bread, sugar, paper, and of course gasoline. So you made do. You made things. You baked things, and if you did purchase something, you know, for a present to give to someone, it was something small and useful, like soaps or gloves. It didn't really matter. All most of us wanted, most of all, was just to be together. And we knew so many of our boys would not be coming back from that war. And even the ones that did, they were returning. Well, there was a terrible flu that year. It was deadly, and it killed thousands, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And it killed my father. And so that Christmas, I needed some cheering up. And my mother and the girls at Goucher set out to make it happen. And that December, there I sat in Ford's Theater in Baltimore City, waiting for the curtain to come up on the sold out show that was talk of the town. Who Stole the Hat? It was a 2-act musical comedy put on by the boys at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Yes. See, that December, there were some 7,000 soldiers down at the bases, Aberdeen and Edgewood, both down there. Those bases were so new then. They were only about a year old. And the boys were down there just waiting to be demobilized. And, well, they were occupying their time, you know, with athletic competitions and music programs. Well, the churches did what they could. They had talks and lectures and things. Oh, they had movie nights at the base. Movie nights. Yeah, and that was before talkies. That was during the old silent picture days, you know, Charlie Chaplin and Lillian Gish. Oh, Douglas Fairbanks. Yes. And I guess, you know, everybody loved a good show. And so some of the more theatrical fellas set out to put one on. And they did. Oh, they did everything. They wrote the script, they composed the music, they choreographed the dancing, they made the costumes. And well, there were no girls on base. So, in the spirit of Shakespeare, they had to fill both the male and the female roles. So they were donning wigs and, I don't know, learning how to dance in heels, I guess. Oh, and there was a big star. He was entertaining there on the bass. What was his name? Will Rogers. Will Rogers, he was there entertaining. And he taught them, the boys in the show, rope tricks that they could use. Oh, and they rehearsed, and then they got bass pilots to fly out down to Baltimore City and to drop leaflets saying, come see who stole the hat, Ford's Theater, one night only sort of thing. And I don't know how it happened, but my mother got a hold of 2 tickets to that show. And the girls at Goucher, those Goucher girls, they got together and they pulled in somebody's older brother to be my escort. I don't remember his name, but he was a good egg. Your friends, they take care of you, don't they? Well, there I was when the curtain came up, and what a show. Oh, we laughed. And do you know that show went to Broadway? Yes, there were some Broadway producers in the audience with us that night. Well, apparently they did that down at Ford's. They, as producers, they'd be shopping for shows, I guess. Well, they picked up Who Stole the Hat, and they combined it with another show at another base somewhere down in DC. They mashed it up together, and then they renamed it Attaboy. Yes, and they took Attaboy up to the Big Apple, and they ran it there over Christmas. I don't remember any of the specific jokes or songs or anything like that, but I do perfectly recall being in the lobby after the show, and I dropped my glove, and a dashing young officer picked it up, and he handed it back to me, asked me my name. You know what his name was? Lieutenant Prescott. The very same one that happens to be up in the attic right now, looking for his own hat. Oh, speak of the devil. Yes, did you find it? Oh, good. It seems that Press has been able to locate, our costumes. There's no problem there, but little snag. His old Minuteman coat seems to have shrunk since the last time he wore it, 30 years ago. Oh, well, who better to move some buttons around than Betsy Ross? But Jackie, I do think I have to leave you now. I hope I've given you some good old stories, you and your Zoom TV viewers, just to make you smile. Oh, is there anything else I'd like to say before we close? Well, I guess just please tell everyone there to take good care of themselves and to be good to one another. And that I wish you and them a very Merry Christmas and a most Happy New Year. I hope to see you again soon. Well, all right. Bye-bye now. Bye.
Thank you so much, Eugenia. It's been a delight to hear your stories. I hope you enjoy the Christmas party.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
Now, it's actually Chris's turn. You promised us that you'd share some historic photos that can give us a better picture of Harford during Eugenia's lifetime. So, Chris, I'm going to turn it over to the real you.
Hi, it's the real me, Chris Potts. All right, I have some pictures that I wanted to show, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. These pictures are from the Society collection, and here we go. They're from the Society's collection and also a few very special ones from Whistler Birch. I'll get to that next. But I thought that these would give you an idea of some of the landmark places and people that Eugenia mentions in her stories. So I wanted to start with this one, which is a picture of the Rigby House, the Rigby farm. You remember in the beginning of the story, Eugenia says that she and Press are going to go there. In the Rigby farm is significant, and the house is rather storied because, as Eugenia talks about, in April of 1781, Lafayette camped there when James Rigby owned the property. And then in 31, they had a big celebration which for the 150th anniversary of Lafayette and Harford County. And as part of that, one of that whole celebration, people could tour the Rigby House and those kind of things. In 1960, a local Bel Air attorney by the name of John Clark purchased the Rigby House, and he opened it up at Christmas for these Christmas-themed open houses for people to come. And so that's where she and Press are heading with their friends. Then the next image that I wanted to show you, remember that she said that she came to Harford County from Philadelphia. So this is a picture of one of the beautiful old trains that this is a picture that dates prior to 1906, because you can see there they put in a second track, but that train is coming over from Cecil County up to heading towards Harford, where she would be holding her mother's hand in excitement and trepidation. On their way to this station, which is the Belcamp station, this picture is from 1900, and she talks about how her Uncle Harry would pick them up with a horse and sleigh and take them off to this farm, which is Maplewood, as she described. Maplewood Farm was off of Fountain Green Road, 40 acres there. And this is the entrance to Maplewood Farm, which is right across the road from the current Fountain Green Elementary School. And you can see there, if you look to your right, sort of parked outside, is one of Uncle Harry's motor cars. Now, this next picture is of Kitty Whistler. Eugenia talks about Kitty being her friend in the story. And this is a picture of Catherine Whistler Birch, who was born in 1898 and who died just short of her 110th birthday in 2008. And she gave extraordinary interviews about her life, including an interview to Frederick Rasmussen in The Sun, 2006, where she talked about her Christmases as a child at Maplewood. And I was very inspired by her story of those great grand old Christmases there on the farm, and sort of had created a character that would have been there with her. Then she talked about how on Christmas Eve, they would go down in horse and sleigh and pick people up from Philadelphia to come and spend the holidays with them. This picture was taken in 1919. So at that time, Kitty would have been about 20, 21 years old, and she would have been attending Goucher She was a graduate of Goucher in 1921 and then went on to Johns Hopkins to get a master's degree, which was really rather extraordinary. Her sister Elizabeth attended Columbia. I had the pleasure of speaking with Whistler Birch, who is Kitty Whistler Birch's son, and he provided me with these photographs of his family home and relatives. These are Whistler's grandparents, Kitty's parents, Harry and Aunt Oleta Harwood Whistler, standing in front of Maplewood. The Whistlers sold their farm in 1928 after the death of Harry Whistler, and they moved to Baltimore. This next little shot is what I thought maybe Eugenia would look like if she ever got a hold of Uncle Harry's car and convinced her father to let her drive. Of course, it's not the real Eugenia, but this is a shot that is of a woman driving a motor car from, if you were to be able to see close enough, the license plate is 1917. It is one of many photographs that the Historical Society has in their collection. Eugenia says in her story that they just have boxes and boxes of photographs, and this image was given to me by Walt Holloway. Walt Holloway is Assistant Chair of Archives, and he is in charge of the photograph collection at the Society. And he was so kind, he kindly helped curate all these pictures for me to show in the slideshow. He sent this one to me, and I asked him, well, how many photographs would we have had, you know, in 64 when Eugenia's telling her story? And he said, oh, about 10,000 plus. And I said, oh, okay, so she's not exaggerating by boxes. But now it has grown to a sort of modest size of 50,000 plus photographs. So this is one of the fun photographs that we can enjoy. This is a picture I'm sure many of you recognize of Bel Air. It's a turn of the century photograph, I think from around 1904. I wanted to include it because I think it's not only a very beautiful picture, but you can recognize some of the buildings that are still there. You see the old Emmy Church, and then beyond that, the Graham House. If you look across the street to the right, you'll notice a horse carriage and some fencing there. Beyond that, behind that fencing is where they would have built the armory in Bel Air in 1915. These next photographs, I think, are a lot of fun because Eugenia reads excerpts from a poem that did indeed run in the Aegis Intelligencer. And WTS talks about places where you can go and regale the inner man by getting something to eat and drink. This is on Cortlandt Street, and this is the corner of Cortlandt and Main. If you want to orient yourself, you can see in the lower right-hand corner some fencing, some wrought iron fencing. That is fencing on the perimeter of the Bel Air courthouse. So on the opposite side of Cortlandt Street there on the corner is one of the hotels that I think that he's alluding to, that there are all these different hotels that you can get something to eat. And then a little further back beyond that, according to Walt, there was a saloon or two. So maybe he was suggesting there was where we could find something to wet air whistle, as he said. Now, across the street, directly across Main Street to the other corner of Cortlandt would have been another well-known hotel. It's hard to see because it's a bit obscured by trees, but I wanted to include it because I think it's very historically interesting that ever since 1814, or starting in 1814, there was an inn or a hotel of some kind through successive proprietors up until 1918, when they converted the hotel into hardware store. And I'm sure a number, or I presume a number of viewers might remember that particular property as Cortlandt Hardware. that was a hardware store for many, many years. And I remember going there myself when I was a child. So fond memories of Cortland Hardware. Here in the photo to the right, you will see another of the hotels. This was the Vaughn Hotel, the 3-story building that you see sort of the right of the picture was the Vaughn Hotel. And then next to that was a bank where the carriages are parked. If you cast your eyes back to the left-hand corner of the picture, you might recognize the fountain that still is in front of the current Bel Air courthouse. But just to give you a sense of within one, not even a block away from one another, you would have had 3 hotels where he tells us we could find something good to eat. Now, this picture I thought is just phenomenally interesting and beautiful, and also gets a lot done in terms of references to our poem. In the forefront, the first building you'll see to the left, you recall the stanza regarding if your carriage breaks down or will not stand and you can go with cash in hand to John Hannah and his brother. This is the Hannah's Carriage Shop, which seems to have been rather popular. Beyond that is the place where he mentions, the one restaurant he mentions by name, to go to Hannah's for a good square meal, go to Hannah's there next door. If you look one further down, sort of right where the trees are standing, if you look closely at the roof line, you may be able to see a bell tower, like a little bell. Here's a better view of that. And that, of course, is the Bel Air Academy, which is across the street from the Oddfellows building there in Bel Air on Pennsylvania Avenue. So those are some of the pictures from the poem that Eugenia shared. Here then are some photographs that correspond to the part of the story that she recollects regarding Aberdeen Proving Ground and the play and the Who Stole the Hat that the boys there made. You can see that it's very clearly labeled 1918 at APG. The bases there were, as she mentions, very new. The Wilson only sort of proclaimed the taking possession of the land in the south in the southern part of the county to establish Aberdeen Proving Ground and Edgewood Arsenal in the fall of 1917. So they really were, that's a very early shot of Aberdeen Proving Ground. Here is an 1919 is the estimate on this picture, but some pictures of some of the guys in one of the barracks at Aberdeen. I wanted to include and share with you this picture because I think it shows, it's interesting in that it shows an aerial view of the aviation field. You can see in the back top part of the picture, the bay in the background. And I was thinking when I saw this that, you know, these planes that we're seeing might have very well been similar to the planes that they flew out over Baltimore City and dropped leaflets advertising Who Stole the Hat that year. This is a poster from Attaboy that, as Eugenia explains, ran in New York. And that show ran at the Lexington Theater from December 23rd of 1918 to June 11th of 1919. So. And then I wanted to also share this one with you because it's very Christmassy and beautiful. This is a picture of the sled races in Bel Air on Main Street in 1903. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner of the picture, there is a horse and sleigh carriage type of thing. And what Walt told me from looking at the original photograph is it sort of looks like a Christmas tree. So we can we can suspect that this is around Christmas time. And I like to think that if Eugenia had been visiting in 1903, she might have been in the crowd because she loved her horse and sleigh so much. Then I wanted to acknowledge my resources and thank Carol Dybel in particular. Carol is a writer and local historian who shared with me a number of her articles that she had written and published in the Historical Society newsletters and Harford Heart magazine. The articles that Carol provided me helped me sort of form a structure for the stories that Eugenia would share. Of course, I wanted again to thank Walt Holloway for providing the pictures and from the Society to share. Walt is also rather expert in issues pertaining to travel, the roads and the trains, and he gave me some very good, solid information. So if you are a train person, contact Walt. And then the photographs from the Birch family, as I said, from Whistler Birch. Here's the reference for the Frederick Rasmussen article, Country Christmases, that interview that Kitty gave to the Sun. And then I also wanted to acknowledge that the Historical Society has a number of what they call historical bulletins, and a very nice, wide selection of different topics. I used a number of them to learn about and include information regarding history of the Historical Society itself, newspapers, and World War I. But those topics, we have bulletins that cover Civil War, history of libraries and nursing and Red Cross. If those for the history buffs in the audience, you can find selections of historical bulletins online on our website. And I think if Eugenia were here, she would say that she thinks that they might make lovely Christmas presents. All right, so thank you, Carol Dybel, Walt Holloway. I wanted to thank Rick Herbig for connecting me with his friend Whistler Birch, and then mention James Christmer, who is chair of the publications committee and has edited and overseen the publication of our mini bulletins, again, that you can find on the Harford History website. So those are my pictures. Oh, okay. I'm trying to unshare my screen. I'm sorry, I can't seem to get out of my unsharing. So
that's fine.
Jackie, are there any questions that, well, now that we're here, this is another picture that I had where that Whistler Birch provided for me of his uncle in the motor car at and I just seem to be continuing to show you other pictures. This is a picture of Edgewood Arsenal. As I said, they were 1917 when they first started. Looks very different now. I think I finally got to stop share. So I'm back. I don't know what you can see, but it's me, Chris Potts. So here I am.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chris, for you, and on behalf of all of our attendees and of the Historical Society. We really appreciate the effort and time and research that you put into this delightful, delightful Christmas present. And we certainly hope everyone else has enjoyed this presentation on Christmas in Harford in bygone days. Our next virtual event is Harford County Soldiers in the War of 1812. It will be held on Tuesday, January the 12th. That's 12:30 p.m. Most Harford County residents already know about the British attack on Havre de Grace during the War of 1812, but there's a lot more to that story. Join us as Dr. Sandra Wallace relates tales of the men who volunteered to fight after the British soldiers did burn Havre de Grace. Dr. Wallace's presentation will outline the adventures of these brave veterans many of whom fought in the Battle of Baltimore, and describe a current ambitious project to document the burial sites of these unrecognized heroes. This 1-hour presentation is free and will begin at 12:30 p.m. on January the 12th. Reserve your ticket today at the Historical Society's website. On the website, you'll find a list of the rest of our coming events, more about the history of Harford County, and instructions for how to join the Historical Society. A gift membership may be the perfect present for someone this holiday season. That web address again is www.harfordhistory.net. Thank you. Please join us for our future events, and happy holidays.